Rogers House Moving has been in the Bay Area since 1989. Their company has over 40 years of experience. Thus, they have developed safe and systematic ways in which to physically move and shore houses.
The process of a normal lift is what we do is we come in, we mark out the crib holes, and we have them dig the crib holes down to the bottom of the footing. And then we have our engineer come out and double check the calculations on where the crib has to be. In other words, it goes by the size of the joist. If there's a 2x10, 2x8, or 2x12, that determines how far the crib can be to the edge of the house. Also depends on how many stories the house is. If it's a single story, 2-story, or 3-story. And then after that, then we come in, put our beams, we build the cribs, we have them dig the holes for the cribs, and we come in and we jack it up. Well, after we get it jacked up and everything, then they pour the foundation, they frame the walls, they do the new framing, and then we come back to lower it. We have to make sure there's shear on the walls. And for instance, last week a house fell over in Oakland because they didn't put shear on the walls. Another company lowered it down without any shear. So we make sure they're braced off properly before we lower them down. They can either use plywood bracing for the shear, or they can use 2x6s, 2x4s, and put them at a diagonal, and that keeps it from falling over. Well, the job over in San Francisco, that building weighed about 200 tons. That was a very heavy building. So we used the 10 and 12-inch beams, and we had a lot of cribs. In fact, OSHA came out on that job, and we had engineered shoring, so they were okay with everything. Everyone was nervous because it ended up being a 4-story building. And so with that kind of weight, we had it all calced out and engineered. And so to take that out, the crane, you can't lift out that far with that heavy of a beam. That beam weighed about 80 pounds per foot. So, you know, that beam weighed 3,200 pounds. So to reach out that far, we put it on rollers, crib rollers, and we rolled it out on the cribs. That way we wouldn't have to, extend out that far with the boom. Otherwise it could roll the truck over. So, you try to do everything safe. So the outriggers on the truck keep the truck from rolling over. So when you reach out to pick up the beam, the outriggers, you put the blocks down and put them out, and that way it doesn't roll the truck over.
We were lowering the house, so we were taking all the equipment and blocks and everything out, and the job was finished, and is mainly just rolling all the beams out to where they were in a safe position to pick them with the crane from the access that we had for the road and the conditions there.
Boom truck sets the beams on top of the truck, then we remove all the blocks. We do a lot of work with Alameda Structural. George Walton over there, he gives us probably I would say 1/6 of our work for the entire year. We shored up a house in Piedmont. It was a basement dig out. I think they were putting a wine cellar and a couple of bedrooms down below.
With this house is there is a construction project for the 400 block of 29th Avenue, and one of the city's requirements whenever a building is being displaced by a project, if the building being displaced is at all usable or portable, doesn't have to be tip-top landmark, it can be any good period building or even a new building, we ask that the developer make it available for moving. This is one where a match actually was made. James had this site where a building had burned. The developers had a house they needed to get out of the way of their project, and this one actually worked.
We had to move a house from 29th Avenue to East 15th Street here in Oakland.
Rogers House Moving takes into account all the details before a move. For example, considering when there's less traffic and the time of day.
He started to move yesterday to wrap it up, pack it up, and put on the truck. This morning, 6 o'clock, we start moving it.
The challenges with this house was a lot of changes in the route, the basement under the house. There was a house next to it, so originally we were going to have to roll it out into the street and load it. And we got lucky; they tore down the house next door, so that postponed it a little bit. But it made it easier to where we could just roll the house sideways onto our trailer.
With this house, this particular house, we had a little snag with the permits because we were going to move it over the top of the 580 freeway, and then we just got notified that they were tearing down the overpass. So we had to reroute it.
They started on Glasscock Street, followed by a left made on Derby, on to Elmwood Avenue. Fruitvale was their next street, along with San Leandro Boulevard, past 37th Ave, and made a left on 40th Ave. They drove down International Boulevard, past 41st Ave, and back down East 15th Street, where the house currently resides.
On the route, of course, there was cars parked in the way, so we had to cut a few tree limbs, and then here at the lot, we had a hard time getting it in here. Well, on this one here, we had the 2 telephone poles on both sides, and the spot of the location of the house was against the fence. So then we had to, we couldn't get the truck to come around enough. So we had to unhook it and then relocate it.
The challenges once we got here was the house was over half the size of our access. So it gave us a minimum area to maneuver the house. So, everything was moved, a few feet at a time, trying to relocate and get the house positioned where it had to go. To where usually you got room, you can overshoot it and back in. To where here we had to, pinpoint it from just one angle. I help direct and just oversee, kind of be extra set of eyes and ears and make sure nobody gets hurt. Everything, we keep an eye out for height, width, pedestrians, just pretty much anything that can get in the way or cause a problem.
Well, there was all together with the subs and everybody, there was probably 12 people working on the job. We had flaggers, flag cars. We had a couple guys out front that were, we have spotters, and then we had guys in the back with flag cars and pilot cars, and you had the truck driver, and we have guys holding wires up. We had about 20 low wires that we had to carry over the house. Our company is probably the best company in the Bay Area. We got a good reputation, everybody knows us, and in 35 years, we never had one incident on any job.
Project Mover have been great. It's very friendly. They help you in everything they can. As far as permits, license, they're very knowledgeable of all that. So I'm pretty pleased with their service.
Love to see them move houses all over Oakland. They did a fabulous job.